Craig, one of the other words you mentioned, things you mentioned, scoring on the penalty kill.
Yes, basically the idea of the power kill. The idea of like Logan O'Connor, for example, just scored 3 goals in 3 straight games shorthanded. How did he go about that? I think that's a cool idea of like seeing a funny puck and just sprinting up the ice, assuming that your teammates are going to get you the puck. Pretty neat. Too often we watch players and they get the puck, then they play hockey rather than play hockey and then the puck arrives at them. So I think that's a big difference that I see between low level and high level. Is high level assumes that you're going to get the puck and they're already positioning themselves for that, versus lower levels, they wait for the puck, they get it, and now I go play hockey and I go do something with it.
Well, thinking ahead.
I think the mindset of penalty kill is ice it. And the idea of scoring that's really quite extreme, but I've always thought every opportunity to take advantage of to score, you should on penalty kill, because they're not in a defensive frame of mind at all. So I know one of the things you've talked about, there's the costumes, Tom. the idea of possession on 5-on-5, that's an extreme. And PK possession, and that's not scoring on PK, but I'm sure, Craig, you could talk to Darryl Belfry's reference of the idea of possessing the puck to kill time on the power play, because teams are unprepared for that.
And to build off your idea of like just ice the puck, like I have a rule that I try to implement. Some players pick it up quicker than others. I call it the 2-step rule. Like if you get like a random loose puck, especially off a shot recovery, like you got to take 2 steps before you actually do anything with it. And often they just take 2 steps to open ice, and sometimes they fire it down, but a lot more times than not, they're like, oh, I don't need to throw this puck away, or like, oh, I'll toss it to the other corner where my defensive partner is, or maybe there's a forward streaking. And just like allowing the pause, as I call it, like the pause in your decision making. Like the event happens, you get a response, which equals the outcome. Well, within there, to make a better decision, you often need to just slow it down a little bit. So that's what I call the pause. And that's my way of trying to get the pause in our on ice decision making. It's just that 2-step rule where we're taking 2 steps to open ice, and then we can actually do something with it. Now, the top players will probably be able to already know the pressure, what's going on around them, but it really helps a lot with the bottom of the roster.
The key there, of course, is knowing when you can take 2 steps and when no. You just got to hammer it around and get it out. You need to know when, so that comes to obviously awareness. But one of the focuses for me whenever I'm coaching a team is the players off the puck, away from the puck, have to let the player who's battling for the puck know verbally, hey, Wally, you got time. Then you take the 2 steps. So if the players away from the puck are communicating time, then that player on the puck, their focus can turn to Greg's, hey, take 2 steps. So you have to know when you can and when you can't, because you can't always take 2 steps. And if you try to all the time, you're going to turn the puck over sometimes. So again, it's a hockey sense thing, but it's also a team skill to communicate the puck carrier out.
Working at the U13 level, Craig, the players are slowly catching on to the fact that the puck isn't a grenade. And they're starting to look and recognize the situation. But the general understanding is that skate with the puck, create time and space with it. So the evasive tight turn is the tactical skill to create time and space and moving your feet. So the 2-second roll of 2 steps, you're moving your feet. They all tie into the vision and seeing the situation and having a little more composure and to make decisions that are going to result in execution or decisions that are going to advance the puck up the ice together. So the idea of empathy to one another to support the puck and to help your teammates and communicate verbally where you are. I'm not sure, Tom, to what degree your teams communicate out loud to each other, or is it just they're just reacting properly on based on what they see?
I think we're like every coach trying to get players to help each other, and it's especially things like when you're going back for the puck. If you know whether you got pressure, you got time. It's like night and day, and yeah. So we encourage them to talk as much, but I think basically every coach does that. Try to get people to talk and help each other.
Does anyone have any more effective ways to help with on-ice communication? Like the thing that I've started to work on, it helps a little bit. I mean, it's still not a holy grail, but a piece is try to get rid of my whistle as much as possible, where the players have to look at each other to start an activity or a drill, and they have to take the ownership. So now they're all kind of like being forced to work with each other, rather than if you do a whistle, now everyone's based on the coach. Just finding simple ways to allow them to take the ownership and the onus, like because I'll let them not do anything. I'm like, so when are you guys going to start? And they have to slowly but surely figure out that, okay, coach isn't going to do it for me. I've got to take the ownership. I've got to take the onus to actually make this happen and work together so we're both going, and it's not just one of us going down the ice 1-on-0, for example, that kind of stuff. The second piece I want to touch on, Wall, you mentioned about time and space. What gives us time? Is it just space? So are we talking about space? So maybe we should reframe that as space and speed rather than time and space. But that's an offshoot comment.
And Greg, I think one really simple thing you could, especially for maybe under U15 level, one really simple thing you can do if you're doing a simple passing drill, whether deliberate or otherwise, you can demand that the players receiving the pass must call for the puck. And it's incumbent on the player passing the puck to not pass the puck if the player doesn't call for it. So I'm skating on the arc of the circle, doing a simple passing drill. If I don't call for the puck, the player that's supposed to pass to me doesn't pass to me, and now I don't get to take my shot. So, like, especially for younger players, it can help them sort of ingrain the idea of calling for the puck and helping people out. They're really simple.
Yeah. Tim,
the other thing.
Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, the other thing that Tim, I love that because I love that phrase, demand the puck, just because it's such a strong phrase and it really gets a point across of what you're trying to do. But the other thing too, with again, when you're coaching the younger kids, anytime you're doing that, and this maybe just my own pet peeve, but I'd love to know what the rest of you think about it, is I would like us to, as coaches, diligently work to eliminate the beaver slapping of the stick on the ice, because that's a way that kids use so they don't have to speak and communicate. It's sort of an easy out. And like I try to tell, especially the younger kids, when you're slapping your stick on the ice, it doesn't sound any different than when your opponent is slapping the stick on the ice. But you know your teammates, if they've got a name, if they've got a little nickname that you use. Verbalization, just an easy way to begin that whole piece. And you can start it with receiving a pass or getting a pass. Maybe you can start it with all the other aspects of the ice when someone's being forechecked hard, or like when Tim was talking about, and the power play and your penalty killing, knowing that team does have time and space. But that's just a little pet peeve of mine. I'd love to see that little piece eliminated at a young age.
I'm going to throw something out here that contradicts everything you guys have all said. I believe that yelling for a pass, calling for a pass, beaver slapping is not a good way of teaching support and timing. In other words, the players haven't connected. If you have to yell to remind them to pass, if they can't see you and you're behind them cycling, yeah. But eye contact is the key to communication. And the receiver must see the eyes of the passer. And he can call, but of yelling at minor hockey, kids will yell for the puck and beaver slap, and they're not open.
Right.
So the idea of timing and support and recognition of eye contact and empathy for that precedes the calling. Calling is under pressure, supporting and being available, letting them know you're there. And then it takes coaching. The coach might have to make suggestions about how to better cope with that situation together on the ice. But
Right.
that's just my theory. Go ahead.
I don't disagree with that totally, but I think that the first step is, all right, you call for the pass, and maybe I give you the pass, and it gets intercepted because you weren't actually available for that pass. Say to the player, why make that pass? Well, he or she called for it. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Now, what you're talking about enters into it in a very concrete way. Well, they called for it, yes, but did you look? Did you get your head up? Did you see the situation? Did you read it? So, I mean, I think it's splitting hairs, but I think there's so many different ways. And again, I think it comes down to knowing different players. There are some players that are really, they really get it right off the bat, Wally, and they would understand about the eye contact and, okay, this is what I have to do. And then there's other players that are much more meat and potatoes where they just said pass when they call. So I'm passing when they call. So I think you have to know the players and know how to teach them. I think they're all going to be a little different.
I think it's a situation that we've talked about. While it applies to almost all situations, it's not either or. They work together. You know, learning to get your head up and identify and make eye contact is an important skill for players to learn. But verbal communication is also a very important, helpful skill, and they go together. It's you know, there are different situations where you know, one or the other is more effective, but it's not an either or. It's important to learn to do both. And my experience is, generally speaking, players are reluctant to use. Many players are reluctant to verbally communicate. You know, we used to have a general rule we talk about a lot when I was playing in St. Louis. It's, you know, especially for D partners, make your ears your eyes. Your ears become a pair of eyes if your teammates are communicating with you, and that's to the benefit of everybody. So they go together in my view.
I find it's beneficial to challenge the receivers to have the onus of being like the first person the puck receiver sees when they pick their head up. I've seen a lot of success with that. And players then have to think in their teammates' shoes, like, okay, where are they going to pick up their head? Where are they going? Where are they at? And just being able to read off their teammates well. So I find that to be a good piece of advice to give, or a good challenge to give players, is being the first person your teammate sees when they pick their head up.
Craig, Tom Malloy's team, and we've talked about this before, last year, he had a mother keeping pass completion stats. U13 girls, just that stat alone, the importance of the pass, it's just something that doesn't exist in minor hockey here. It's all coast to coast. So when we're talking about empathy, I think that's what the most important thing is: respect your teammates, and the importance of the game, and passing precedes every other concern. You can pass stationary, you can pass moving in a drill deliberately, but in a game, the context of, are you open? Are you able to skate to space to see and scan the ice, as Sammy Joe Small mentioned 2 weeks ago with their U11s? Scan the ice, get their heads up and look. So with Tom's group, I used the stat: if they completed the pass, in other words, it was made and caught, 2 points. If they looked up and were looking and attempting to make a pass, but didn't complete it, they got 1 for having their head up and looking. So that's what I'm talking about at U13. That's where they might be yelling for it versus understanding. Make it yourself obviously open by exaggerating your target, creating a receiving angle. And those are the finer points of, and I'm not sure how you get a feel for it, but it takes teamwork, empathy, and it takes eye contact and verbal communication. I agree. But at some age, Johanny Walston's drill sequence of stationary passing with 1, 2, 3 pucks, progressing to give and go shooting with 1 pass and timing, that progression to me is absolute biblical to the game of hockey at that age level, and it would help them become so much better at it than they are.